Space, the final frontier. Join us for a bold conversation. Our prime directive? To recap our favorite Star Trek shows, both new and old. To engage in debate about all things Trek. Prepare to energize with phasers set to stun.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Phasers Set to Stun. In this ongoing series from a film by a podcast, we continue to show our love for every quadrant of the expanding Star Trek universe by covering television, animation, movies, directors, merchandise, and much more. Plotting the course as always is your core Trek crew. I am Scott Hoffman.
I'm David Burns.
And I'm Wayne Whited.
And in this episode, we're continuing our coverage of the original series with the other pilot episode. Is that fair to say?
The official?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Where No Man Has Gone Before. Written by Samuel A. Peoples and directed by James Goldstone. So this is technically the second pilot episode, or the first. It really gets confusing for me as a first-timer. So we have Captain Kirk replacing Captain Pike, for listeners. And we also have a little more than half of our classic crew. So without further ado, let's break down this story. David, why don't you give us a summary of what this is all about?
In the second and official pilot, we're introduced to the Enterprise and its crew. Though the lineup isn't quite complete yet, Captain Kirk and the crew respond to a distress call and recover a ship's recorder from a missing vessel. Using the information it contains, they attempt to push past the edge of the galaxy, but the crossing triggers psionic abilities in two crew members. As their powers rapidly grow, they become a threat to everyone aboard, forcing Kirk to make an impossible choice: maroon them or kill them, before they become too powerful to stop.
So, Wayne, how does this stack up, in your opinion, versus The Cage, as kind of the battle between pilots?
Well, it's a good episode. I don't think it's as great as The Cage, but I definitely see why they did it the way they did it. There's a lot more action now. I like the characterizations now. We're starting to get part of the regular cast that we're familiar with here. But they're not quite there yet. The sets aren't quite there. The costumes aren't quite there. But story-wise, it's not bad. I mean, it's not one of my favorite episodes, but it's not a bad story.
I mean, it has a lot in common, I think, with the other one, because it has kind of a Twilight Zone kind of trippy edge to it.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
It is.
A little bit of mind bending. Feels like almost kind of it's hard not to see similarities with Q kind of entities in this one. Minus the tinfoil eyes. So I'm glad that they were able to move away from that at a certain point. Dave, what do you thoughts about the crew that we have in this one? It's almost the classic crew, but not quite. Sulu is there, although he's not a pilot yet. No Bones, no Chekhov. What's your assessment of the almost crew we've got here?
I think the problem is if I'm looking at through the glass of today, it feels awkward, right? Because you're missing some folks. And the uniforms are just ridiculously off. Because as we know, when they filmed this, they didn't have that stuff set yet. But it just seems very strange to me. Kirk obviously acts like Kirk. There's no change there. That's the Kirk we know and we grow to love. Yeah. Spock and their relationship is already there. You see it being developed quickly here. Scott's there, which I'm glad to see. And Sulu is in a very weird position. I think, was he a physicist or something like that?
Yeah, an astrophysicist quoting mathematical things.
Which seems really weird to me, knowing who we're going to get from Sulu later on. But the rest of the crew just felt off to me. The doctor, not the female doctor, what was her name? It was Dr. Piper. Dr. Piper was the one that just baffled me to no end. Because he literally just popped up when you needed him, and he would just disappear again. And he just didn't flow to me at all. Dr. Denners, I liked her. But other than that, the rest of the crew just felt off to me.
I found it really odd that first of all, let me state that the death count in this episode is really rather high.
Yep.
But I found it really odd that they introduced a lot of these characters, and some of them are in major positions, such as Mitchell. You know, he's the first officer, just to kill them off. And in the pilot, in the first episode of the series, you're killing off all these characters. That's pretty rough for someone who's just tuning in, not knowing anything about it, and all of a sudden, boom, half your characters are gone. You know, do I want to come back the next week? Of course, you know, obviously we do, but you know, back in 1966 when this first aired, I'm not sure I would have. I don't know if how I would have taken to this series. I'm not sure what I would have thought about after watching this first episode. Like you said, David, it does I think it was you that said it was a little bit like Twilight Zone. I guess that's the only context. Did you just get sorry?
Yeah, that's right.
But that's the only context you really have at this point, because still, I mean, we're still really early in sci-fi on television. You got let's see, the first season of Lost in Space has aired, 2 seasons of Voyage of the Bottom of the Sea, and Twilight Zone. That's about it.
Yeah.
So you know, I don't know. I'm just not sure how I feel about this episode.
Yeah, I'll go back to what you were talking about earlier. I think The Cage was a better pilot because it felt like the crew was more complete than it is here. Yeah. It just feels off to me. And again, that's not because we know, looking at today, that we're missing McCoy and Chekhov and Uhura and all that stuff. But when you really look at it, you're right. It seems kind of awkward for this time period to jump right into that and kill off one of the main characters. I mean, what are you doing? Today I can see that working because it has happened.
Yeah.
But back then, no. I'm surprised. I can see why this became the third episode instead of the pilot.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
I can see why they decided to do that. I almost feel like Roddenberry did it on purpose. Like, he knew he wasn't happy with a few of the people that they cast or that are in these roles because he knew he was going to replace them eventually, maybe. Because I'll go back to Dr. Piper. I did not like his character at all. I didn't like the actor, and I'm not putting anything against the actor. I just felt like he didn't work. The previous Doctor in The Cage did. I was okay with it because he felt more like McCoy.
Yeah.
Here, it's as far as you can get from McCoy, it felt like. I mean, am I wrong?
No, I think you're hitting it. I mean, it feels just like the personality dynamics weren't there.
Yeah.
Like in the Cage, you had the dynamics between Number One and Captain Pike and Spock and the Doctor. At least a core crew that had enough differences in their personality, but they were also complementary of each other. So it kind of felt like you had some kind of investment in their relationships with each other. Here, it didn't seem like there was that kind of connection. You really had the most involvement from Kelso and Dr. Denner, Spock, Kirk, and Mitchell. But Mitchell very quickly becomes adversarial. And Dr. Denner almost becomes like a will she, won't she kind of character that you're always kind of watching. So I don't know, it didn't have the same kind of dynamics. And Wayne, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because it's almost like a Rogue One kind of situation where it's kind of like, okay, well, if everybody's dead at the beginning, who do I invest any kind of care in for any kind of future episodes?
But you literally can tell that the focus was going to be on Kirk and Spock. You could tell. I mean, that was the main focus in this episode, and you could tell that relationship,
which was smart.
It is, yeah.
That was smart.
You're going to see that relationship is building and developing here. I mean, you're going to see the comedic relationship between the two of them. The whole chess thing at the beginning, when Spock thought he had Kirk, and then Kirk surprises him with that. And even when they were on the going to the bridge. And they were asking about playing chess, and Kirk was, doing the little nod thing about, basically cutthroat, that he took Spock out, basically.
Right.
And then the whole ending thing too, when he talks about how sometimes you surprise us, Mr. Spock, that whole ending. So you see that developing already, and I love that. And so you can see that was becoming the focus. They were just going to add on the characters that we know and love today a little bit later on. So.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that was a good hook for this episode and for the series is William Shatner's charismatic performance as Kirk. He kind of feels like he's naturally been there for a while.
Yeah.
Of all the characters, he feels the most established. Because I mean, the chess scene is a great example of that. He's just kind of like smirking and laughing with Spock. It feels like he's been around for a while, that he's very familiar with it, and I think that helped to kind of get people into kind of the flow of the show and feel like he's somebody they could reliably follow.
And it didn't take them long to start realizing they need to rip off William Shatner's shirt, right? I mean,
right. There's rocks falling on him. What happens to rip his tunic? Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Good grief.
And enough of an opportunity for him to do his classic roll maneuver.
Right.
I wanted, you mentioned the doctor, and I was actually rather surprised when I did my research that he was kind of a fill-in character because Roddenberry wanted DeForest Kelley but couldn't get him because he was busy.
Yeah.
So they kind of put him in here, and then they realized the character didn't work, and they were able to get DeForest. But I want to talk a little bit about this doctor, Dr. Piper. I forgot completely about this character. Totally about that. It even existed.
I see why.
But now wait a minute. Now let's think about this, because we talked for 10 weeks about Strange New Worlds, and we've been wondering, well, we're going to be going from Benga to McCoy. Well, now this throws a little bit of a spanner in the works because there's someone in between.
Right.
So, are they going to deal with this? I wonder how they're going to deal with this, or if they are going to deal with this. And then, not to mention Commander Mitchell. Are they going to deal with him? This has completely changed my outlook on how the last 2 seasons of that show is going to go.
You're right, Wayne. I never thought about that. How are they going to handle that in Strange New Worlds? Or are they?
Yeah.
Maybe since they're kind of rewriting it a little bit, that they're just going to push that off. That we're not going to do that. But very interesting. At least if they don't, give us some kind of characters in the background who are named those characters, so we can at least see them somewhere, right? I think that would be a fun touch to the original pilot of Star Trek.
Yeah, nice little continuity hint. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
But that's a good bring up, though, Wayne. I didn't even think about that.
Maybe there will just be some one-off episodes where a Dr. Piper comes in to help Dr. Mbenga and is quickly shuffled off, and the other one's just a bartender, but everybody calls him Doctor or something or other.
Now,
Sure.
I know there is, I don't remember which one it is, but there is a novel that explains it, that McCoy was away on some sort of symposium or something for a couple of weeks, and Dr. Piper came in to fill in for him on the Enterprise, and then this story just happens to happen during that time. I kind of like that idea, that he's just there for, just taking a place for McCoy as he's on vacation.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, and I mean, kind of taking it off ramp for a second, I hope something that they do with Strange New Worlds, knowing that it's coming to an end, is to kind of like leave little seeds, little traces where people could use for, comic offshoots or novelizations or animated or whatever. Who knows? Maybe we'll get the Adventures of Dr. Piper. Will be a major, maybe short trek or something like that.
That totally sounds like a Lower Decks episode, I swear.
It really does.
It does.
Well, speaking of doctors, what are our thoughts on Dr. Denner? Seeing Sally Kellerman, who we know and love from 1986's Back to School, but also the first Major Houlihan from MASH, right?
Yes. Yep.
From the cinematic version. Thoughts on Sally Kellerman in this one?
Well, she's great. She was good. It's a good start for a guest star, because she was a big name at that point anyway, especially at least on television. I hadn't quite hit the stardom that she had with when she did MASH, but she was a good catch for the pilot episode. I can see why they cast her, and she's fantastic. I think she's great. It actually, I like the character of Dr. Denner. It's too bad they killed her off, because once again, it would have been nice to see a little bit more of her on the show. But of course, she's just a guest star for the episode. I love her. I love her in all of her work. She's a fantastic actress.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I did like her a lot. Dr. Piper I could have done without, but her, I really enjoyed seeing her on screen and her performance. She had some good chemistry with William Shatner. She absolutely did. And it's a shame we couldn't get to see a lot more of that.
Yeah, I think she also did a great job opposite Gary Lockwood as Gary Mitchell.
Yep.
Because it seemed like she wasn't as enthusiastic about pursuing these powers before she even knew that she would have them. But it seemed like if things had gone another way, she might have been able to temper him a little
Yeah.
bit more.
Yeah.
How about something I completely forgot about? That Kirk was a teacher?
Really?
Yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah, it's mentioned in there with Mitchell.
Yeah.
They're having that conversation. He taught Mitchell. He even says that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
Kirk was a teacher?
It's odd.
Yeah, it doesn't fit. And the fact in this episode, his middle name was R. Kirk.
Just on the
Yeah.
tombstone. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's because
I'm like
Mitchell
I'm,
just messed it up. He wasn't that good a student.
I'm, I'm guessing that's what it was. He was just playing with him, right? Sure.
Yeah.
We'll go with that.
Yeah.
More stuff. I'm surprised Lower Decks didn't go after.
Right. If only we had time.
Yeah, I know.
So, as far as Mitchell and Denner are concerned, something that came up for me as the first timer was kind of wondering if they were supposed to be kind of emerging Q kind of things, or are we talking not quite to that extent? Because originally they're talking about him as ESP, so I'm thinking it's, Professor X, Jean Grey kind of things. But then he gets to the planet and he starts doing all this reality altering kind of things. So is it more Professor X or more Q?
It's been hinted in various media and vaguely on the show that was Q, or what it was in Q like,
Right.
not the Q that we know of from the Next Generation, but his race.
Okay.
There have been some mentions that the kind of forcing it a little bit in that direction.
Interesting. Well, it also kind of struck me as interesting that it's almost like their reaction to seeing Mitchell kind of developing these powers, like plan A was to kill him, plan B was to maroon him like Khan on a desolate planet. Seemed kind of cold-blooded to me.
That's Kirk's move, apparently. Just if we can't
I
figure
guess.
it out. Just leave him.
Drop him
We're
off
done.
on
We're
City
done.
Alpha 5
Yeah,
and
yeah.
good luck. Yeah.
And I've got to mention something. I had to giggle every time I watched this episode. And Wayne, you're going to laugh because every time I heard Mitchell, I was like, Mitchell.
I did the
From
same thing.
MST3000, every freaking time, and I
Mitchell.
chuckled.
Mitchell. Yeah, I the same way. We both think alike. Hey,
So-
remember? I'm not sure if you remember, David. We met Gary Lockwood years and years ago. You remember that?
We did, yeah.
Way back in 2000 at DragonCon convention.
Yeah, sure did.
I didn't get a Star Trek autograph from him for some unknown reason. I don't know why.
I mean, isn't that kind of strange that we didn't do that? Very interesting, but hey. If
he
only we
still
could go
have-
back in time, right?
Did he have the shiny eyes still?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one question is, this kind of connects to other things. The galactic barrier, they mentioned a couple times. And of course, the first thing that made me think of is Final Frontier. Or, right? The movie Final
Do
Frontier.
you have to bring that one up?
Gosh.
Why
Do I-
are you
do
bringing
I-
that up?
I just gotta. Are those connected in some kind of
It's
way?
so
or was it kind of a
confusing.
write-off and like, nah, just forget it exists?
No.
Just forget it exists. That's what it was.
From what
Yeah.
I understand, and I didn't do the research on this, but I'm pretty sure if I remember right, this galactic barrier is the barrier around the edge of the galaxy, while the one in the Final Frontier was the barrier around the center of the galaxy. There's too many barriers in this galaxy. I
That's
don't
so
know. Are
weird.
we fenced in or something? I don't know.
I'm confused. I thought
Yeah.
it was endless, but okay, whatever.
Well, their mission is to go where no man has gone before, up to a certain point. Like, don't
Yeah.
cross this sidewalk because you'll go into bad
Which,
territory.
by the way, thank goodness we have the narration back now at the beginning for the main
Yeah.
title.
Oh yes,
Very happy. to see
finally.
that. Feels natural.
Any other standout moments that we want
Well-
to discuss in this one?
Not moments, but I do love the very cool matte paintings they used in the original Star Trek stuff. You know,
Yes.
I know I know like the planets and stuff all have that same kind of look as through all three seasons of Star Trek for the most part. But man, I miss the days of matte painting. I mean, I know we got CGI now, and we got those TVs now that they put behind actors
Yeah.
to make it look like they're on a different planet, but it's not the same thing in my opinion. I love just looking at those matte paintings in
Yeah.
this episode, just exploring that. It was so cool. It really was.
Yeah, I totally agree. I also liked the.
Yeah, it's a true art form.
It is.
Yeah, I think overall the set design has a lot of bright vibrancy to it that just kind of takes me back to like, Wonderful World of Disney kind of shows, I mean, like, yes, it's dated. Yes, you can see the seams, but it just has that kind of aesthetic that I agree. It's, yes, we've advanced, but it's something that I'm glad we still have access to things like that.
Me too.
And I'm glad there are things that haven't been replaced, because I've noticed in these couple of episodes, the interludes where you see kind of shots of the Enterprise, it looked pretty modern. Is that fair? Like, are those updated?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, they're updated.
Yeah, those were done back in 2008. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So, Scott, you mentioned that if there's any other scenes that I absolutely love in this episode, and there really is. There's one. It probably shouldn't be as comical as it to me that it was. It was when Scott asked if Kirk had got the phaser rifle, and Kirk says he didn't order one. All of a sudden, you just see Spock come walking in with it. I don't know what that was, but I just started laughing at that scene. It's like, look at Spock.
He's already loaded and ready to go.
Right.
Yeah. Wayne, what about you? Any other standout moments, Wayne?
Gosh, scenes. I mean, like I said, the whole episode is hit and miss with me. There's a lot of hits and a lot of misses, but in terms of standout, I just think it was a smart move at the end. With the battle, I like the fight. I like the ending with the can't think of her names now.
Dr. Denner.
Thank you very much. Her giving her life for Kirk, and then him taking the opportunity to strike at Gary Mitchell, because I mean that Mitchell was his best friend, and not only just his first officer, but his best friend. So a lot of stakes there for Kirk. Yep. Really sets the tone for the series, and I by the end of this episode, I can feel the first steps that Star Trek's taking to become the legend that it is, really.
Yep.
Yeah. I have been kind of wondering, though. I'm sure that they probably buried the dead, and it's assumed that Mitchell and Denner are both passed on. But considering he was doing all that reality warping, there was part of me that wondered, could there be a possibility that he was basically making the whole thing up? Like, if he was using reality altering powers to say, like, all right, well, we kind of have this planet all to our own that we could use to whatever, that we could reshape an entire planet if we wanted to. We don't necessarily need the starship. That maybe they had kind of faked their death in order to be able to just exist on their own. But then I guess to what end? Like, they wouldn't, I don't know. It seems like a kind of solitary existence to try something like that. But
who knows?
Anyway. So, of the crew members that we have, and like we said before, there's not much of a core crew here. Dave, which one do you think shined the most?
Well, I'm going to go right off the bat and say it's Captain James R. Kirk. we get to see him full in command right from the start, and he's already showing why he's the captain. His playfulness comes through in his dynamic with Spock already. He's talking about that where he surprises him at the chest, early on. And then that whole ending piece where he says, I believe there's some hope for you after all. I kind of mentioned this stuff a little bit earlier, but you're already seeing that relationship between the two of them. But, beneath that confidence is that brutal leadership that Kirk has, right? Mm-hmm. He, struggling with the possibility of killing a friend, like Wayne just mentioned there, knowing that if he hesitates, the ship could be doomed. He's got a lot of pressure on him, at this point. Luckily, he listens to his science officer, in trying to get a lot of this stuff figured out. To a degree, he did. But we get the fights that we see, Star Trek that became known as. So I have to go with Kirk on this one. I'll probably go back to Kirk on a few episodes as we go through this. Surprise, surprise, I know. But I want to go ahead and get this one out of the way.
Yep, that's a good call. Wayne, what about you?
Oh, it's Captain Kirk for sure. The whole episode was written really to be a showcase for the new captain, for William Shatner too. Mm-hmm. This is one of the earliest episodes that really defines who Kirk is. He's forced to weigh his friendship, the duty, his survival. As I mentioned, his close friend, Gary Mitchell, is becoming dangerously powerful. It's really an emotional gut punch for Kirk. He's having to choose the safety of the Enterprise and his crew over his best friend and first officer. that really shows the contrast between Kirk and Captain Pike that we saw in The Cage. And I mean, Pike and Jeffrey Hunter would have been a great leader, but this episode really shows that Kirk's more of a man of action, and a fallible one, really. And it like I mentioned before, it sets the tone to what we're going to see later in the series, and obviously, it's exactly what the network wanted.
Yep. Scott,
Yeah,
what about you?
I think we're going to go 3 for 3. Yeah.
Yep.
I was gonna say Lieutenant Kelso. No. Yeah, I mean it's Captain Kirk, and I mean, I just think what I had said before about his personality and what I think that's going to draw out. We see the dynamics with Spock, but it's you can tell in this one he's going to bring that out of other crew members depending on how the dynamic is. Obviously, hope that none of the rest of them turn into Q-like gods that he has to kill at the end of the episode. But he very much seems like a leader who's going to pull out some good relationships, some humor, but also able to handle himself when the stakes are high. So yeah, definitely Kirk.
Yep.
Well, Wayne, if there is one crew member that you'd want to be, assuming it's somebody who's safe and sound, like the last time, but if you were one character in this episode, who would it be?
Oh gosh, so much happens to all these characters. It's really hard to pick because, like I said before, the death count is so high. But I'm going to pick Chief Engineer Scott. I think he comes across pretty well in this episode. He's still young. He's confident. He's practical in his suggestions in that officers' conference they have. He's not quite the man that we will come to know and love, later, but he's a working officer. His personality is a little colder than what we're familiar with, but he's determined to solve that problem, keep the ship safe. So he's got the bravery and the balls to save the ship. So I'll choose him. At least he came across without any scars at the end.
Yeah, that's a good call.
It is.
Dave, what about you?
So as much as I picked on this character in this episode, I'm going to be Dr. Piper, just because of the mere fact that he's always pretty much out of harm's way.
Yeah.
And just shows up when he's needed, and then he leaves again. Okay, we're good. Let's go.
Yeah.
Apparently, all you got to do too is just give somebody to put it in their mouth so that it wakes them up. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, sure, that works.
Just reach into the bag, whatever it is, Benadryl, Tylenol, whatever it is.
Exactly. Scott, what about you?
It was a tough choice, and I was trying to avoid death and getting hit. Mitchell's Emperor lightning force, whatever that was. I guess I would choose Mr. Spock, because it doesn't seem like he's in that much danger. I'll join the crew and say he doesn't seem to get hurt that much. But also I'd just like to be able to change whatever that kind of yellow sweater outfit he was wearing and get into what we're used to, because it was bugging me so much. I was
Me too.
Get your blue uniform, for God's sakes.
Yep.
So for
All
me
the
it'd be
uniforms
Mr.
were
Spock.
bothering. All of those uniforms.
Oh
were
yeah,
bothering me.
and
Yeah.
with the death of Mitchell, he gets a promotion at the end. So hey, you're doing pretty good.
Exactly.
All part of the plan.
That's why he wanted to knock him off so quick. He quaked at Judge. Kill him! Kill him!
Exactly. Get him out of the way. What kind of Easter eggs do we find in this episode? Even though it's pretty early, I guess it's kind of Easter seeds. Is that the better way to say it?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Seeds, I guess. I don't know.
Dave, anything of interest?
I just find it fit. This is the first time in U.S. TV history that a second pilot for an hour-long series had to be submitted to convince the network to go forward. We already talked about the colors of the uniforms and stuff like that. We already talked about Sulu. I believe Gary Lockwood went off to 2001: A Space Odyssey, didn't he? After this was done, that's
he
where he
did.
went.
Yeah.
So he went on that, and I think we kind of touched briefly on this earlier, where this is actually aired as episode 3, after the Man Trap and Charlie X, because in that, if you're watching it in that kind of order, everyone's uniforms are different, and then you go back in the third episode, you get this.
It's
you're like,
confusing.
what the hell is going on?
Yes, thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
as the new guy,
It's
very
confusing.
off-putting. Yeah.
It is. It's
But-
ridiculous.
I agree with Roddenberry, though. I think The Man Trap is a fantastic episode. And I
It is.
can see why he said, let's air this one first.
Yep.
Yeah.
And And you talk about Easter eggs, so we already have an Easter egg in this episode because the backdrop, the mountainous backdrop, is a painting from The Cage. So they're already using Easter eggs.
Hey, see?
Yeah.
There you go. That's the first Easter egg.
You're right.
First one.
It's the very first.
That's good. Well, the only one that I had found, I was captivated by the silver eye effect that they gave to Gary Lockwood and Sally Kellerman. Although I felt for them because it seemed like that would be very uncomfortable after hearing about how Brent Spiner went through some discomfort with the contact lenses for Data and things like that. I was like, this has got to be painful.
Yeah.
Apparently, it was tinfoil sandwiched between two sets of contact lenses, which I can't even. No, I don't really want to talk about it very much more because it just sounds
Makes me
painful.
cringe.
Yuck.
Absolutely, but I
Idea
gotta
of
give credit.
Gosh.
Gotta give credit to LA optician John Roberts, who was hired to create that effect because apparently he he created those, and then the associate producer who hired him felt obligated to try them on before asking any of the actors to put them in, which kind of reminds me of the last episode when they were trying on the green paint and that being painful. I just so credit to them for even wearing the damn things, let alone the performances they had to give with them in.
No way are you putting that in my eye.
No
way.
No. It's just I can't, like when you bite on aluminum foil. I just imagine that, but in my eyes.
Yeah.
So no.
Nope.
Wayne, what else did you find behind the scenes?
Oh, there's a few. Okay, with this pilot, 2 other episode scripts were also considered alongside of this, but both of these would be used later on in the series. And the first was one that was created actually for The Cage, and that was Mud's Women. And this was rejected as a pilot because Roddenberry knew that trying to sell an episode about an intergalactic pimp selling women just wouldn't fly with the studio. Good call there. But the other one was the Omega Glory, which let's be honest, that's just not that great of an episode to begin with, so I could see why they skipped that one. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, the director of photography for this episode is Ernest Haller, he was a very, very well-known and respected DOP in Hollywood. He worked on films like Rebel Without a Cause, Lilies of the Field, Maltese Falcon, and he won an Academy Award for Gone with the Wind. So, they got this. Yeah, this is a big name. And there was one other big name, too, that worked on here that won an Academy Award. And that's David, you'd mentioned the matte paintings. That's Albert Whitlock. Fantastic paintings. 10 years later after this, he would win the Oscar for the paintings that he did for the disaster movie Earthquake. And then again the year later for the Hindenburg. And he worked on so many great films like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, The Wiz, Dune, and even John Carpenter's The Thing.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, I also read that this made me laugh. During the filming, a swarm of bees attacked the set, and both William Shatner and Sally Kellerman were stung pretty badly. So, now, Kirk says he's worried about Mitchell ever since that night on Deneb 4.
Mitchell.
Mitchell.
Well, that can't be a coincidence that the pilot episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, Encounter at Farpoint, takes place mostly on the planet Deneb 4, which was the home of the Bandy and where the Farpoint station was situated. Now, there is a longer original cut of this episode. It contains a longer opening narration, a few deleted scenes, and an unused epilogue, which equals about 5 minutes of footage that was cut. Plus, this episode was also broken down in chapters. It on screen would say Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, so on. This original print was thought to be lost for many, many years until they found a copy back in 2009 in England, just in time for the Blu-ray release. So if you went to see this longer work print with the extra footage, and I'll tell you, it's nothing to get excited about, the extra footage. See why they cut that. But it's on the first season of the Blu-ray if you want to go out and find it. But now something we talked about before, but let's address that elephant in the room, and that's the fact that the tombstone for Kirk states that it says James R. Kirk. There really isn't any explanation for this other than his middle name hadn't been established. But if you want an explanation, I suggest you go out and find the Star Trek The Next Generation novel Q Squared by Peter David. This suggests the events of this episode take place in a parallel universe where Kirk's middle initial is indeed R, and that Gary Mitchell's godlike powers were a result of him being temporarily possessed by Q, which the powers just simply drove Mitchell insane.
Mitchell.
Interesting.
I know I cannot get that out of my head. I'm sorry, Mystery Science Theater has just embedded itself into us.
Yep,
That's right. Well, thank you both as always. This is always fun to do. And it's interesting to go way back to the original series. I'm looking forward to what we're talking about next, because I think we're going to start to get into kind of finding our footing a little bit more with the core crew. Is that fair to say?
Yeah. That is very fair.
So, Wayne, what are we covering next?
Next time, we are jumping into the regular run of the series, and we will be tackling 3 episodes, the first 3 of the regular run of the first season, and that is The Man Trap, Charlie X, and The Naked Time.
Well, thank you, listeners, for joining us for yet another episode. Remember that hailing frequencies are always open for you to share your thoughts and questions on your favorite social channels. You can find us online at afilmbypodcast.com for our articles and more content. Remember to check out our YouTube videos and email us at afilmbypodcast@gmail.com. We'll see you next time for another episode of Phasers Set to Stun. Thanks, everybody.
Mitchell.
Jeff's going to love that.
He's kind of like, what the hell?
He's like, it kept slipping. I kept hearing Mitchell.
Every time they said his name, that was what was in my Mitchell.
Same here every time, damn it. It was awesome. Oh, God.